Sharing is Caring by Itslivybear, Chapter 18, The Great Escape 2. Working title. Gym Gamma had been made into where they would be having their final exams with 10 rooms, windowless, but currently with open doors. From the outside, they were no more than concrete boxes. But looking in through what Izuku could see, they were set up nicely. Rooms with wallpaper, furniture, and maybe a painting or two. How they managed to set this all up in a day, Izuku had no idea, but he was relieved that he hadn't delayed the finals too much. Greetings! Nezu smiled, clasping his hands in front of him, and welcome to my escape rooms. The scenario for all of the rooms is the same, for your class at the very least, and we will now divide you into 4 groups of 4 and 1 group of 3. Aiwazawa? Their teacher stepped up with a lazy smile. Before I go on the run for a murder I did not commit, the teams are as follows: Yayarozu, Kirishima, Jiro, and Koda. Ojiro, Ioma, Sato, and Sero. Asui, Ashido, Midoriya, and Todoroki. Soji, Hakaguri, Ida, and Uraraka. Tokoyami, Shirazaki, and Kaminari. Now, he drawled, for the scenario. Nezu? The principal hummed. Yes, I do believe you had best start running. Their teacher gave a salute. Counting on you, kids. He booked it out of the gym. Now, the scenario. Tragedy has struck, I'm afraid. President Mike has been murdered. The video evidence they have indicates it's Eraserhead, but he came to you, his students, begging for you to prove his innocence before he fled. You only have so long to find the real killer from a pool of suspects before the police catch him and send him straight to Tartarus. Nezu grinned. Inside the room is everything you have to prove your teacher is innocent and catch the culprit. You will have 1 hour to solve the escape room and get out. Should you require a hint at any time, you can call out and sacrifice 5 of your minutes for a hint. Up to 3 times. Off to your rooms now. Shoto walked with him, Sue on his other side, and Mina leading the way to one of the empty rooms, shutting the door behind them. The room looked like an office to a degree. Directly across from the door, as a TV mounted to the wall, with an end table shoved into the corner beneath it, holding the TV remote. Between the door and the TV was the suspect board, currently adorned with 16 labeled pictures of heroes, and attached was a small bin labeled Dismissed. The 16 subjects were as followed: Hawks, All Might, Endeavor, Roku, Best Genus, Common Woods, Mount Lady, Ingenium, Mandalay, Ragdoll, Pixie Bob, Tiger, Sir Night-Eye, Midnight, Fat Gum, Miss Joke. Going right from the TV was a strange cabinet with an odd pattern of 15 holes on top, and above that a painting of what looks to be bones in dirt, like an archaeologist site. On the wall opposite the TV was a lamp in the corner, a desk with a smartphone on top, and 3 locked drawers, and a safe with a paper taped on top of it. The 3 locks on the drawers looked like a keypad lock, a 4-letter padlock, and a D-pad padlock, with a central button and 4 arrows. The safe had a 5-letter combination lock. Finally, on the last wall was a shelf with 3 shelves, each containing something different. The bottom one held 4 wooden rods that were shaped like T's. The top was flat, and the stem was rounded and faceted in an octagon shape. On the middle shelf was a square piece of paper, and on top of one there was a rectangle. The room was small, but apparently it had everything they needed. Your time starts now. Okay, Mina huffed. Let's see what we have right off the bat. She hit the shelf, picking up the 2 pieces of paper and wrinkling her brow. Okay, one is like some kind of code, and the other looked like a DDR moveset. Oh, wait, no. Maybe the code is like a key for a code? I don't know. You guys check it out. The code in question was a series of 26 symbols in 2 rows of 13 with the words Talon code above the symbols. The DDR moveset was a series of 16 arrows. Up arrow, down arrow, up arrow. Right arrow, left arrow, down arrow, up arrow, down arrow. Left arrow, right arrow, down arrow, up arrow, down arrow. Suyu took the code.
I like codes, Kyoto, but I will hold on to this. What about the safe in the desk?
She eyed the top of the safe and shrugged. A riddle. We can either do it now or come back to it. Shoto picked up the phone up off the desk and turned it on. Looks bland, like a new phone, and it's password protected. Not much we can do right now. Izuku felt himself gravitating to the safe, wanting to see what the riddle was, if nothing else. The taped down paper had a single question on it. What 5-letter word can you add to make it shorter? He blinked. It was English. He had never been more thankful for President Mike's classes before now. It's in English, he whispered, pointing at the riddle. Shoto leaned over him and hummed, reading it aloud. Suyu blinked.
Short. It is 5 letters in English, and if you add an it becomes shorter, Kyoto.
Mina cheered as the frog girl went to put in the code into the lock, and the safe clicked open. Inside was an index card and 4 more of the rods. Suyu set the 4 rods on the bottom shelf with the other 4, since they had no idea what to do with them yet, and took the index card. It was the same code. Mina groaned. We have a bunch of random symbols and we're just supposed to figure it out? Suyu cocked her head.
The previous riddle was in English. English uses a 26-letter alphabet, and there are 26 symbols in the code. I will admit I do not remember the correct order of the alphabet, however.
Shoto nodded. I do. Let me assist you. They huddled over the index card and Mina hummed. Well, I'm going to see what's on the TV while you guys deal with that. Izuku decided to follow her, not wanting to bother Suyu and Shoto with the code, and turned just in time to see Mina give a cry of confusion. She was pressing the buttons on the remote, but nothing was happening. Booey! I could have sworn the TV would be something. She shook the remote in frustration, and they all froze when they heard a rattle. Mina pried the back of the remote off, revealing the battery slots that were empty save for a small key. She took it out with a grin. Mido! I bet this is the key to one of the drawers. He smiled and nodded, following her to the drawer, but before they could unlock it, Suyu and Shoto looked up.
We have the code.
Shoto nodded. This says 2 women. I am assuming it's talking about the suspects, so we can remove the suspects that are male. And since it's labeled as 2, it stands to reason there are more of these. Mina pressed the key into Izuku's hands. You open this, I'll tackle the suspect board, okay? He blinked as she walked off, but inserted the key into the lock and clicked the padlock open, letting the drawer be opened as well. Another sheet of paper with 4 riddles and 2 more rods. Suyu croaked.
That makes 10. Perhaps they'll fit in the cabinet?
Shoto shrugged. What's the paper? Izuku cleared his throat, reading the English riddles out loud. 1. What can you add to 1 to make it disappear? 2. What can you give a deaf woman to make her hear? 3. What comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never once in 1,000 years? 4. What occurs twice in a week, once in a year, but not in a day? Shoto smirked. The last 2 are letters, so it stands to reason the other 2 are as well. 3 is the letter M, as it appears once in the word minute, twice in moment, but not in 1,000 years. 4 is the same vein, just with the letter E. Mina bounded back over. Letters? Ooh, I love letters. How many are we looking at? 4, Suyu croaked.
From these riddles, but we have the 2 already, Kirill. It seems like it will be for the second drawer on the desk.
Shoto put in the last 2 letters, M and E, and looked at the sheet. Perhaps N for the first one, making none? Something felt wrong with that. Not because of the wording, but 3 out of the 4 letters would be close enough for them to open the drawer through trial and error, so they would know soon enough. The padlock started at NQME, and they cycled through the second letters until they were back at NQME with no luck. Izuku bit his lip, starting to running through the English alphabet. Bone, done, cone, phone, gone. Oh! Gone! He grinned. It's gone! You're making the one disappear. You're making it gone. The letter is G. G, Q, M, E became game. As the lock clicked open and they all looked at the second clue to figure out how A was the answer. Izuku got it first and closed his eyes with a groan. To make her hear the spelling, you add the A and suddenly the deaf woman can hear. Ugh. Mina giggled, and Shoto snorted, but Tsuyu just smiled. It was clever, Izuku had to admit, but that didn't mean he had to like it. It was now open drawer with 3 more rods and another index card. They wordlessly passed the index card over to the other 2, and Izuku couldn't help but watch over their shoulders to watch them solve it. Shoto stood up, assuming the slash is like a space, like in Morse code. This says 1 emitter quirk. Take out any suspect with mutation or transformation quirk. Izuku watched as the only suspects left were the 3 female pussycats, Mount Lady, Midnight, and Miss Joke. It seemed like they might have found the clues out of order, but it didn't really matter in the end. Mina lit up. Wait! The DDR pattern! Oh my goodness, the finer drawer! It's the code to open the drawer! They didn't stop her as she swept back to the padlock, square paper with the arrows as her guide, and pressed the buttons in the order indicated before pressing the button in the center solidly. Nothing happened and her grin faltered. Wait, I must have done it wrong. Hang on. She did it again, slower this time, and the lock clicked open. She breathed a sigh of relief and opened the drawer triumphantly. 2 more rods and the batteries. Woot! Let's watch this TV. Sue handed her the remote and the batteries clicked in. There was a brief squabble where Shoto insisted they were in backwards, but eventually all was well and the remote worked. Mina pressed the power button and the TV turned on. On the screen played what looks to be CCTV footage of the murder. President Mike is standing under a streetlight, doing something on his phone. He laughs at something before Eraserhead's capture scarf comes out of the shadows, dragging Mike into them, and a few moments later, Mike's body flops back into the light, now dead. The only thing seen of the killer was the scarf. There was no audio of the whole thing. Mina sucked in a breath. Not looking too good for the teach there. I mean, nobody else uses a capture scarf. Izuku cocked his head and frowned as the video played on loop. Mina was right. He knew that the capture scarf was Eraserhead's signature weapon, but someone close to him might have been able to get close enough to take it. It might have been a learning curve, but if someone was trying to set Aizawa up, there was no better way to do it than with his signature weapon. Still, the only part of the killer that was seen was the scarf. There was hope. Shoto stretched. Well, that was interesting, but not terribly helpful. What's left?
The cabinet and the rods,
Tsuyu hummed.
and now we have one for each of the holes.
They gathered up a handful of rods and walked over to the cabinet, haphazardly slotting them into place. It turned out there were four technically, orientations the rods could go in: horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. Izuku let the other three try and figure out the pattern while he looked up at the painting above the cabinet. Knowing Nezu, it wasn't just decoration. There were many different bones, from arm to and leg bones to ribs, a spine, and even half a jaw and a finger bones arranged in a line. A vertical line. His eyes sharpened as he examined the rest of the bones. They were all in one of the possible orientation for the rods. He tugged on Shoto, who was beside him, and pointed up. The bones are the pattern. Follow the bones. The girls looked up and quickly figured out what he meant, slotting the rods in the correct orientations. They all backed up to compare, making sure everything was right, and the phone rang. They all jumped a little, and Mina shrieked a tad, but Tsuyu quickly went over to the phone, ringing with the unknown number, and accepted the call. She put it on speaker, and after a moment a voice none of them recognized spoke.
15 bones of ancient men. Take away 6, but still leave 10.
The phone hung up. They sat in silence for a while before Mina slowly turned back to the cabinet, biting her lip. I'm relatively certain that what math was doesn't work out. Like, 15 minus 6 is definitely 9, not 10. Shoto nodded. You are correct, which means this is a puzzle. We can assume that the rods are these bones based on the picture, if nothing else. So we must find a way to take away 6 and still leave 10. They all looked at the rods, trying to wrap their brains around it, and Tsuyu squinted up at the painting. After a moment's pause, she climbed up on the wall and beside the cabinet and looked between the picture and the rods before croaking and jumping back to the ground. She carefully removed 6 of the rods until there were 9 rods left. But they spelled the word 10. The cabinet clicked and opened, and inside was the final index card. After a quick translation from the Italian code, they had the final clue. 3, Shoto read aloud. Jealous lover. Mina blinked, then snickered. Jealous lover? Oh my, was this a crime of passion? But a jealous lover from who? For Mike? For Aiwazawa? Izuku bit his lips. Most of the pussycats seem too nice to be a jealous lover, except for maybe Pixie Bob. I hear she's been looking for a boyfriend for a while, but also, both of them are married. Mina straightened perceptibly. Mike and Aiwazawa are married? To who? Izuku wasn't sure if he should really say, but it might help, maybe? Each other? Mina gasped dramatically, then squealed. They are? Oh my god! That's so crazy. They're like total opposites. That's so cute. And all the more reason why Aiwazawa could never kill our English teacher. Okay, so it has to be Midnight then, right? I mean, she was spurned by both of them. I know they all went to high school together, and now they're working together. It makes so much sense. Tsuyu shook her head.
They seem to be good friends. In addition, Midnight does not seem the type to get jealous.
Izuku looked back at the TV before his eyes lit up. It's Midnight or joke. Shoto raised an eyebrow. Reason being? He pointed at the video. Mina said it. No one else has the capture scarf, so if they used one in video, it means they had to be close enough to him to be able to get it. Midnight is a fellow teacher, and they've been friends since they were our age. And Miss Joke is also an underground hero. They've probably worked together in the past, more than he worked with the newly debuted Mount Lady or the rescue specialist Pixie Bob. That means it has to be. He blinked and trailed off, feeling himself go a little pale as he realized how long he had been talking, but no one mentioned it. Suyu just nodded.
You know the more about the heroes than I do, Kyoto, but I have heard of Miss Shoke. Those seem like the most likely candidates.
Then we should pick one, Shoto said, and then we can be done. Mina bit her lip. I don't want to be wrong, though. We have a 50-50 shot. Is there nothing else that clues us in? Izuku watched the video again, Suyu at his side, while Shoto and Mina debated the last two suspects. Mike under the streetlight on his phone. The scarf comes out, dragging him out of the light. He flops back dead. Mike under the streetlight, laughing at his phone. The scarf. Wait a minute. Sue, he murmured. He laughed right before he was taken. She cocked her head.
He did. It is joke.
Shoto and Mina looked up. You sure? Izuku beamed at Todoroki. Yes, it has to be her. Mina grinned and rolled back on the balls of her feet. Awesome! Nice work, team. Now, how do we say we're done? The door opened and Nezu walked in. Worry not, he chuckled. We have been listening and watching you the whole time, in case anyone needed a hint. I must say, you sped through them. What is your final answer for the true killer? Todoroki stepped forward. Miss Joke. Nezu cocked his head, studying the group for a moment before he smiled. You pass! Without another word, he turned and left the room, the door slowly creaking all the way open, and they just looked at each other. Mina was the first to cheer. What? We're going to summer camp. Was so fun, guys. Sue smiled as well, and Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, sagging in relief. Todoroki even gave the smallest of smiles. They left the room together, where Aizawa was waiting for them, smirking. Thanks for clearing my name, he snorted. Now go outside and see ectoplasm. They looked at each other but walked outside. Just outside the doors, Ectoplasm stood with a few coolers beside him. Ah, he said. The second group out. Come have some ice cream. Momo, Kyoka, Kirishima, and Koda waved and went back to chatting, eating their ice cream. They each got their own and joined them. When did you guys finish? Mina grinned around her popsicle. Momo smiled at her. Only a few minutes before you. I imagine having two people with enhanced hearing was a little bit cheating for the combination locks, but the riddles were fun anyway. Everyone should be out in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I think, before the hour is up. As if on cue, Ida, Uraka, Hakaguri, and Soji came out, grabbing ice cream before they came over. Uraka grinned and gave all of them a thumbs up. We passed! Mina and Hakaguri cheered with her, and everyone else smiled. It was nice that over half the class had passed at this point. But man, Hakaguri giggled, I can't believe Midnight killed him. Izuku startled. But Miss Joke was the real suspect. Momo nodded. We also got Miss Joke. Were the clues different, maybe? They compared the talent clues and concluded that no, they all had the same clues. Kirishima frowned. But we all passed, even though our groups got different answers. Ojiro, Shiro, Ayama, and Sato came out next, and they too had chosen Midnight and passed. The only group left was the group of three who would hopefully break this tie, and then maybe the teachers would come out as well and fully explain. When they did come out, it was Shirizaki scolding Kaminari and Tokoyami trailing behind them nonplussed. You cannot simply ask for clues without consulting the group. I am certain we would have figured out a way had we had extra time, but instead we had to rush. We only managed to narrow it down to 6 people. That is a horribly low chance of finding the true person who committed this awful sin. Oh, come on, Kaminari pleaded. There was no way I was getting the bone thing. I mean, I'm not the greatest at math, but those numbers didn't add up. Even with the clue, it was hard. But I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to decode the last suspect clue, really. She huffed and folded her arms. It was surely a lucky guess that allowed us to pass, but I accept your apology. Children of God do not hold grudges, and forgiveness is a virtue. Tokoyami raised a brow. I am certain that while it is a tenet of your church, it is not one of your 7 virtues. She rolled her eyes but sighed. No matter what happened, we did end up passing, so thank you both. They got their own ice cream, not noticing how half the class was vibrating with the need to know who they had listed as the suspect. So, who'd you pick? Shirazaki blinked at the sudden question, then frowned. We chose All Midnight. She seemed close enough to the victim and the martyr for it to be reasonable. Momo's group and Izuku's both groaned while the rest of the class cheered. The tie was broken. But we all passed, Suyu pointed out, and had the same clues, so it seems that perhaps the answer was not as important as we feared. Indeed! The crowd parted to reveal Nezu, Aizawa, Present Mike, Midnight, and Miss Joke herself. She grinned and waved. I know I'm not one of your teachers, but I am a teacher, and this sounded so fun I had to come and see. Plus, I had the day off anyway. Nezu hummed gleefully. As most of you have realized, you all passed regardless of your answer. Oh, if you had guessed someone who did not fit the category of the first and second clues, you would not have likely passed, but we were mostly testing your teamwork and cooperation, as well as your problem solving and delegation skills. All of you passed, albeit some more soundly than others. It was marvelously fun to have someone play my escape room. Perhaps next time I'll make a harder one, but this one was suitable for children. A few people groaned. Some of the puzzles had been hard, especially since the basis of all the riddles was a language other than their first. But Principal Nezu, Momo called out with a slightly raised hand, who was the true killer? Miss Joke and Midnight looked at each other before Miss Joke burst out into maniacal laughter. Me! She crowed. 'Twas I who felled Hazashi, all so I could be with my love. I was outside. There was never any love, despite the rumors you'd like to spread. She grinned a little smugly. That 3rd-year internship was great, and everyone believed me when I said we were dating. It was so funny. He buried his face further in his capture scarf and rolled his eyes. No. No! She burst out laughing again, doubling over and wiping a tear from her eye. Oh, you crack me up, Eraser. Midnight laughed lightly. I'm shocked that a whole 11 of you thought I could murder Hazashi. He's my best friend, even more than Sho. I mean, sure, I can actually use his capture scarf, and I don't know if Emi can, but still. Hey, Sensei, Ojiro said. How'd you get that video anyway? Nezu hummed gleefully. A pro hero by the name of Mirage was kind enough to put it together for me. Her illusions are top-notch. No present mics were harmed in the making of those videos. The whole class laughed. It was a good day. They had all passed. Izuku grabbed Tsuyu's hand and smiled at her. She smiled back, eyes crinkling at the corners, and he felt like yesterday was so far away. Maybe summer camp wouldn't be so bad.